Hi, welcome to Ranger Country. I'm Peter.
And I'm Lawrence.
And we're here to bring you this fundamental video on scopes. We call it fundamental because I bring the fun to it. And what do you bring to it, Lawrence?
Anyway, so a scope is a replacement to your open sights, essentially. So today we thought we would show you exactly what the scope is and how it works. So on this scope here, this one in particular, we've got your ocular lens, which is the side you look through. We've got your objective lens, which is the side that's going towards your object. You've got, on this particular scope, you've got a zoom wheel. You've obviously got your tube with all your lenses and everything in it. And then on the top here, I don't know how well the camera will be able to pick that out, but you've got a turret for up and down adjustment and a turret for left and right adjustment. So that will sit on your scope just like that. And
on your rifle.
Your scope will go on your rifle.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't put your rifle on your scope because that usually doesn't work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pellets drop out.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Okay.
Put the scope, this bit, on the rifle, that bit, and you'll get on a lot better. So you look through this end, as I say, you look through your ocular lens, which is usually where your brand markings and that sort of thing are, and your objective lens is usually bigger. So you look through that. Common misconceptions with them, unlike binoculars, where you would bring them right up to your eye, with a telescopic sight, they're originally designed for recoiling rifles, proper powder burners. So you hold them usually about 4 inches away from your eye. So if I hold that there, I can see a nice, clear, circular image, no shadows around the outside. If I'm too far away, too close, too far to the right or to the left, I won't be able to see through it properly. So when we look through a scope, about 4 inches away from our eye, and I'm about there. And that's where it will sit naturally on the rifle.
So we have this adjustment on the front. There's quite a lot of adjustments on a scope. Can be quite confusing. And with us having the shop and having the range, we come across an awful lot of people who are new to shooting, new to scopes, but equally some have been shooting quite a long time. And a lot of people haven't a clue what this is for on the end. Now this is the ocular adjustment. Now all this does is adjust your eye to the reticle, and that's all it does. Some people never touch it, some people focus the scope with it, but the best way to set it up, we find, is to look at a white subject, a white wall for instance, look through and just turn that until the reticle is completely in focus for your eye.
What I will say to that, when we're talking nice scopes like these Hawks, got a Nico here, and I've got a high-end Hawke to show as well. When we're talking about these, they quite often can be clearer than you think. So what I tend to say is screw it all the way out, then screw that in until until it starts getting better and then worse. Once it gets worse, you pull it back a little bit.
I find generally, being a glasses wearer, as a rule of thumb, the better your eyes, the further in you want this screwed. The worse your eyes, the further out you want it screwed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have it right in, don't you? I have it quite the way out. I tend to shoot without glasses on because I find that trying to shoot with glasses on just brings an extra...
There's an extra lens then, isn't it? Especially if you've got varifocals.
We've had people having problems with varifocals, so whatever works for you, I think, is the rule there. So we have a lot of numbers on these scopes, a lot of numbers, a lot of letters.
I was going to say, when you see a scope advertised, it's the make, usually the model, and then a load of numbers and a load of letters.
So let's get into what these numbers mean. So your numbers, we've got a 3 to 9 by 40. So simple. Magnification is between 3 times magnification and 9 times magnification. The 40 refers to the objective size.
In millimetres.
Yes, absolutely. Here again, we have a 4 to 16 by 50, that one. So 50mm objective. So what's the benefit of a 50mm objective over a 40, would you say, Lawrence?
Yeah, so you get lots of different sizes of them, from about 32mm, something like a 4x32, something like that, up to 50, 56, sometimes even 60mm. And the larger the objective, the more light is going to be able to get into the actual scope, so it's going to be brighter. That does then obviously mean it's physically bigger. You might need physically taller mounts to put it onto the scope if it's a bigger objective. And an objective is not the be-all and end-all of brightness. So, for instance, I could have a 50mm entry-level Hawke, whereas I could have a top-end, even 30mm Hawke or whatever else it would be, and the top-end glass would be significantly brighter, even though it's a smaller objective.
Okay. Now we have tube size as well, don't we? Different tube sizes. This one here that Lawrence just put down, this one is a 30mm tube. So, meaning really, you've got to put suitable mounts with that scope. 30mm mounts, 1-inch mounts, or 25mm mounts. They do also do a 34mm tube, but we sell very few of those. They're a little bit more specialised scopes. So generally 1-inch or 30mm. Mounts low, medium, high, and then depending on what it's going on to, what rifle it's going on to, you can have either 9-11 dovetail or Picatinny. We're going to do a separate video on mounts though, because it can be there's quite a lot of choice out there.
To know what height and...
Yeah. Things like magazine you have to take into account on some rifles to clear it. And sometimes you think you've cleared the magazine and the saddle in the middle will just catch it. Sometimes you can work around it. So what does everything else mean then? AO.
AO, yeah. So that is, again, I don't know how well the camera will pick it up. Maybe we'll put a little photo in overlay. Yeah. So this particular scope doesn't have AO, so you won't be able to adjust the focus. AO is called adjustable objective. Your objective lens on this particular scope is adjustable. So that will mean, like binoculars, you can adjust the focus down for closer distances. So if you want a higher magnification, you can focus that. So without that, on airgun ranges, it will be out of focus if you don't have that.
So on a standard scope that's non-AO, I think they are focused at around about 100 yards, meters.
Usually yards, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's all imperial, usually.
Yeah. So a little bit ineffective for airgun shooting. When you need to be focusing down to 20 yards, you can't. You're going to end up a bit out of focus no matter what you do with it. SF.
Yeah, so like AO is your adjustable objective, which is focus on the front. SF is essentially just exactly the same, except it's called side focus. So like on this one, we've got a little wheel on here, and that will adjust the focus there. So that means that when it's on your rifle, instead of having to take the rifle down and twiddle it about and then see, oh, it's not quite in focus, there we go. Oh, now it's in focus, what sort of distance? There we go, that's what it is. With a side focus, you can hold it up, you can turn it, that's in focus there. What distance is it? There it is. That's what it is, done. You haven't got to mess about on the front.
Now you can also get larger side wheels for the scopes. Some scopes come with them, some don't. I find the positives of a side wheel is you can roll it with your thumb while you're in the hold position. The drawback is it can prevent your magazine coming in and out. Sometimes you can put the magazine in from the other side. A lot of guns can't, so it is a bit restrictive. There are ways around it, sort of cutting a slot out, neatly machining a slot out of your side wheel. They are good to use, aren't they?
Yeah.
Very good. So what other figures do we have?
So we've got the numbers on it. We've got the AO, we've got the SF, and we've got IR usually as well. Neither of these two scopes have IR, so that's illuminated reticle.
Not infrared.
Not infrared.
No, that's a different thing, isn't it? Which we're talking about in night vision videos.
Yeah, IR is your infrared, like you say, which is obviously the spectrum of light that we can't see. But IR on your scope is illuminated reticle. Easy for me to say. That's on the side on this one, so it'll light everything up.
And that's just the reticle, the crosshairs light up, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant for when you're shooting. If you're shooting in a dark building against a dark backdrop and you've got a dark crosshair, sometimes it's impossible to see. Just put it on minimum illumination. Bingo. Everything's clear, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You say reticle. What on earth is a reticle? We've been tossing that word around.
Good point. So what is a reticle? We talk about reticles and crosshairs. What's the difference?
So they're essentially the same, different word meaning the same thing. What it is essentially, if you've ever looked through a scope, you'll see, unlike binoculars, or I was harking it back to binoculars, you've got black lines in the centre, usually in the shape of a cross, but you can get different...
Hence crosshairs.
Yeah, absolutely. You can get different styles. You can get a dot in the centre, and you can get just a post in it as well. And that's essentially where you're aiming.
Now, I've seen some recently that look more like a Christmas tree. What are those called?
Oh, they've got all different names.
Okay. So, SCB?
Yeah, that's an MTC-specific small caliber ballistic reticle.
Okay.
That's particularly fine. They're a nice little Christmas tree thing, like you say.
What's the AMX reticle?
So, AMX is Hawke's specific Air Max reticle. It's half mil dot spacing, and we'll come to that in a sec. It's half mil dot spacing, so you've got a crosshair in the centre, you've got a dot below that, and in between that you've got a line. So it goes line, dot, line, dot, line, dot. The lines get gradually bigger, so it looks like a Christmas tree. That's essentially all that is.
SR Pro?
SR Pro is the Hawke's specific one for the Sidewinder. It's like a crosshair in the centre, with a space below it and all around it, so it's nice and clear around it, so you can see your prey or your target around it. And then it's a series of dots and Christmas tree again, going down from that.
Isn't it annoying how young people remember everything?
What I will say is, we forgot to mention mil dot and half mil dot first of all. So your mil dot reticle, your mil dot scope is your sort of standard, your bread and butter. You've got a crosshair in the centre, and then you've got a dot below it, dot below that, dot below that, dot below that. That will give you points of impact. So if you're shooting at 30 yards, you've set your crosshair at 30 yards. Obviously, your pellet or your bullet is dropping off. So a further distance for that, you're going to be needing those dots below it to know where your pellet's going.
So we've talked about mil dots.
Mm-hmm.
This one here is 1 click, 1/10 MRAD. So we're going to do a separate video on that, explaining all difference between MRADs and mil dots and such like. So have we covered the basics, Lawrence?
So we've got what a scope is, what all the numbers mean, how the knobs and dials and bits and pieces work. We haven't done your up and down adjustments and your left and right adjustments.
No, we haven't.
I did mention it right briefly at the start. But do you want to explain which way is which and what does what?
Absolutely can, yeah. So, under these removable caps, we have the up and down adjustment, and we have the left and right adjustment. So, left and right is often called windage. And the top one is just the vertical, up and down. Now, they are graduated, and they have an up and a down, and a left and a right. Does what it says on the tin, really. We will do another video on zeroing your scope and how to set it all up. So I think, have we covered the basics, do you think?
I think so. That gives you everything you need to know to know what you're buying, what you're looking for, what all the numbers and dials and everything mean. I think so.
Excellent. Watch out for the next instalment of the fundamentals.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.